Services Committee, October 11th, 2022. Persons on this commission or committee is myself, Councillor Bressie, Councillor Thiessen, and Mayor Clayton. We have no delegations today. We have 2 reports. Item 3.1, Director Service Area Report, Mr. Chris Manuel.
Okay, good morning. So in Community Social Development, I'll report that the 2023 to 2026 FCSS program funding RFP is live for community submissions and is scheduled to close today, actually. Enforcement services. With the cold weather right around the corner, enforcement will be conducting zone patrols throughout residential neighborhoods looking for abandoned vehicles. Abandoned vehicles greatly hinder our snow removal operations, and enforcement wants to be proactive and remove abandoned vehicles ahead of time. Just for people's reference, an abandoned vehicle is considered such when it has been sitting on the street unmoved for longer than 72 hours. So a reminder for folks to move those onto their private property. The fire department, it looks like an initiative has been underway to improve air quality within the dispatch center, and that involves the installation of a UV filters, which are reported to greatly increase the air quality for the people providing those services. Additionally, 5 firefighters have recently completed their MFPA 1002 pump course to allow them to operate the large apparatus during an emergency call. Fortunately, the course was offered in-house utilizing local instructors. And over at the RCMP, it's reported that Grande Prairie RCMP received reports of stolen oil field supplies valued at just over $8,700. And following information received from the public that a male was trying to sell these stolen items, an investigation by the Crime Reduction Unit confirmed the items were stolen supplies and identified the offender, who was arrested. A 56-year-old man from Pouce Coupe, BC, was ultimately charged for the offense. Additionally, Grande Prairie RCMP and the Municipal Drug Unit conducted an operation along with General Duty and the Crime Reduction Unit and executed a search warrant in the house related to drug trafficking. The search yielded 900 grams of cocaine, 650 grams of meth, 300 grams of fentanyl, and $4,500 in cash. A 25-year-old man from the city of Edmonton has been arrested and charged in relation to that investigation, and he's currently remanded into custody pending future court appearance. Additionally, the Community Engagement Diversity Unit has been meeting with the Islamic, Francophone, and Nigerian associations, as well as Métis Local 1990. In addition, safety and planning was completed with the Pride community, as well as a violence threat assessment at Derek Taylor School. And the last department update on is the Mobile Outreach Program. Mobile Outreach has updated their RAT cards, so their informational cards that they hand out to the public, and these will be distributed in the coming weeks. And additionally, caseworkers are now offering a walk-in service on Wednesdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Street Outreach Center on the 2nd floor for people looking for drop-in service.
Thank you very much for that report. We have Councillor Bressie and Mayor Clayton.
Great, thank you. Just with those updated RAT cards, can we just make sure that council gets a few of those so that we can hand them out as well?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Great. Mayor Clayton?
Thanks, Chairman O'Toole. Director Glavin, can you tell me, or sorry, Director Manuel, can you tell me, have you had any feedback or do you have any information on the PSU?
Yeah, so actually, an update on the PSU is last week marked the first week where they had 24-hour operations. So we'll have a meeting a little bit later today to discuss how the overnight component was going. In the weeks, it's been approximately 4 or 5 weeks now since the day shift has been operating, and Certainly getting positive feedback, particularly from members of enforcement services, the mobile outreach team, who they support heavily, as well as some of the hotspot areas that they've been patrolling. They provide pretty robust reporting and a great deal of kind of photographs that are passed on to us for intelligence and situational awareness. So by all accounts, so far things are going fairly well. Even some of our social agency partners made the comment to us that our contractor in this case appears to have done a pretty good job of selecting the candidates that they've selected, as they're navigating a pretty tricky environment with some of the clientele, and they appear to be doing so in a tactful and what's viewed as a reasonable manner.
Great news.
May Chairman O'Toole, and I don't know if we publicly asked this, so I understand in the near future they will be not wearing contractual uniforms. They will appear to be city enforcement members.
So, through the chair, we are keen to better identify these officers as public security unit members as opposed to contractual security members, just to distinguish, I guess, the city's role and in the different scope of duties that these officers have versus what a conventional contract security officer may have. So a brand new strategy is underway that would include a separate uniform distinct from others, as well as vehicle markings and decals that signify public security.
Thank you.
I think that's great. Was there any other questions regarding this report? Okay, you're off the hook with only a few questions. Item 3.2, the Coordinated Care Campus Capital Fund requests. Ms. Wendy Hughes, take over, please.
Thank you, through the chair. To give respectfully a background on the Coordinated Care Campus, in 2021, 210 individuals were identified as experiencing chronic homelessness in the city of Grande Prairie. New building construction proposals presented challenges in obtaining approval for identified land, location, scope of the project, and the budget. COVID-19 occupancy restrictions put further pressures on emergency shelter capacities, which elevated the urgency to secure affordable housing options. In response to critical need, alternative options were taken into consideration. On July 11th, 2021, Council approved the purchase of a property for $15.5 million. The 78 square foot former hotel boasts 3.82 acres of developed service land and would include benefits such as quick occupancy of affordable housing units, furniture, equipment, commercial kitchen, laundry facilities, and locations proximity to local amenities. The initial project would see 120 C classification rooms to be utilized for affordable housing and applicable programming needs. The units were planned to be located on the north end of the building on floors 1, 2, and 3 in the former hotel suites. Some buildings upgrades and renovations are in progress to suit the programming needs. However, in early 2022, professional involvement had confirmed a significant fire separation issue in the existing residential suites. The fire rating must be addressed regardless of occupancy or use of the building. This serious safety deficiency was contrary to a previously commissioned building condition assessment report. A cross-functional team then took immediate actions involving engineers, building inspectors, the Grande Prairie Fire Department, and other internal departments who worked on plans that would fix the fire separation issue, satisfy project intents, and have the renovation completed within a very tight timeline. This complex project also posed challenges in supply chain disruptions and fluctuating construction costs. Engineering had subsequently performed a thorough code analysis, including architectural, electrical, and mechanical of the property, as well as a Class D estimate was provided. The project now includes a floor plan adjustment with construction to be completed in phases. Essentially, the floor plan will swap the use of the space between the north end and the south wings. Phase 1 and 2 of the renovations to the south wing includes 63 B3 occupancy supportive housing units that were previously not available in Grande Prairie. On July 11th, 2022, Council approved $3.75 million to be used for the completion of Phase 1 and 2. Atkinson was the successful bidder in the request for tender and is currently on site with construction beginning on September 15th of 2022. Phase 3 renovations to the north wing include 43 Class C occupancy affordable housing units, which will be available on the third floor. Municipal offices will be located on floors 1 and 2, which will include enforcement services, GPREP, and community social development. Phase 3 of the renovation requires an additional $3 million in identified funding sources. This is required for the request for tender to be issued. Phase 3 fully completes the project. Administration has reviewed all existing capital projects that have been funded but not have been started as of yet or committed to as of September 30th, 2022. Appendix A includes a list of projects for Council's consideration. In closing, administration is recommending that committee recommend Council to approve $3 million for Phase 3, the final phase of construction of the Coordinated Care Campus, to be funded by existing capital dollars as presented. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that report. Any questions? Okay, I got Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman O'Toole. Thank you as well, Wendy, for the presentation. Sorry, Ms. Hughes. Anyways, my question is just the obvious question. So in the past, we borrowed for this project. Now we're looking to take from other projects and to replace the funding in there. What was the rationale behind not borrowing for this $3 million addition? Yes, it could go either way, yeah.
Thank you, through the chair. So we're in a situation where we have opportunities for grants. We have opportunities to sell existing city facilities and receive proceeds. So given that those amounts are uncertain at this time, will come at a future time, we had thought it best to look at what we had available for capital funding and strategize from there. Additionally, borrowing at this time, interest rates are a lot more than they were at the beginning of the project, which then would affect our operating budget and costs for running the facility ongoing. So this seemed to be the best method of funding the $3 million that was required.
Okay, thanks for that. I thought we were just going to say interest rates, but I appreciate everything. Thanks for all the hard work, ladies.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Just understand the finance a little bit, make sure that I recall what's going on. So we did sell the old fire hall where CSD used to be located. Am I correct in recalling that the proceeds from that were already applied to this project?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct.
And then presumably, although council will have to decide, but presumably we'll end up selling City on 99 once this is fully done. Are the potential proceeds from that building reflected anywhere in our budget right now?
Thank you, through the chair. No, at this time we've not used those. We can't use them until they're realized or we know what we're going to get for proceeds. So the plan being that in the scenario that we do offload City on 99, we would bring forward a recommendation to council at that time.
Go ahead.
And then, so along those lines, it's there's a proposal here to defund a project that's very dear to my heart that I fought very hard to get funded. If and when City on 99 gets sold, is there, if council decided to took out $1 million today from Avondale, and then in the future, when that building sold, said, "Hey, we want to put that $1 million back into Avondale," would council have to be defunding anything else that we're planning on doing right now, or that money pretty much is up for grabs when we sell City on 99?
Thank you, through the chair. So council will have the flexibility on what to do with those funds when they do come to fruition. So a recommendation would be brought forward. If you so choose to refund a capital project, absolutely, that could be done.
Thank you.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair O'Toole. I guess my question is, on this massive project, can you explain to the public why is phase 3 just being brought into the picture now to be funded for $3 million, when why that wasn't discussed a year ago?
Thank you, through the chair. So it is a complex project, and when we looked at the entire project itself, we were looking at timelines, and it is identified that we do have 30 individuals that are housed in modular units on site as we speak. And so we looked at prioritizing what we could do to ensure that those residents are moved back into the building first. And so as we worked with engineers and as well subject matter experts within the city of Grande Prairie, we came up with the best case scenario to ensure that we have them housed back in the facility.
So you're saying this is all because of the issues of, you know, the poor fire separation issues, but yet it says here for accommodations for the living units, that should have been a part of the original plan, and then 70 municipal staff. Is that not part of the original plan? I don't understand how you're tying 30 people into something that should have been discussed before.
Mr. Chris?
Yeah, I can assist with that question there. So in regard to the first phase of the question, which was how come the phase 3 funding was coming forward right now, the challenge with that was, I'll just back up. So the initial purchase that in budget that council allocated was for an all-inclusive project that consisted of the residential and the commercial components. What occurred is when the building code issues arose, the engineers then did their assessment, and from their assessment, that's when the phasing of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 came in. So phase 1 at that time, the priority was to get the residential component done. So when they priced phase 1, it was based off the engineering design costing that they did at that time. The costing for phase 3 only recently became available in the last number of probably a month or so. Yeah. So the actual cost for phase 3, due to the shift in scope, didn't become available until approximately a month or so ago.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nicolay?
I know I've got people in the queue ahead of me, Mr. Chairman, but just on this point, if I may, just to clarify, all phases, a completed project, ribbon cutting, people moving in, was contemplated in the original budget and has always been included in the anticipated total cost of the project. What's happened, to put an even finer point on it, is the scope of the project increased dramatically as we went through fire code and other inspection activities. And B, we ran into a supply chain and shortage inflationary period that simply escalated the cost of the project. Happening all over anybody that's doing a capital project right now, and it certainly has impacted this one. I would characterize what we're seeing today as the cumulative impact of all of that inflation and code and standards adjustment piling on top of a budget that always included all of the phases. It wasn't as though something was left out.
I appreciate your comments on that, because I think what's written here isn't what you just said. And so it's confusing to the public, and they need to see transparency. They need to know what's happening and why it's happening. So hence why I asked the question.
Mayor Clayton?
Thanks, Chair O'Toole. Yes. So on some of those comments, I guess, Ms. Hughes, can you tell me the way that the motion is worded to recommend for phase 3, and you reference the individuals living in temporary accommodations, would the individuals in temporary accommodations not be accounted for in phase 1?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So phase 1, so CAO or Ms. Whiteway can correct me if I'm wrong. Whole project was scoped. We had a price. We started to do these in phases. The phases started to come back costing more for supply chain issues, inflation, etc. So now the council chooses not to fund this. What won't get completed is phase 3. Correct? Okay, I'm getting nods everywhere. So if council chose not to spend more money on this project, what would not be completed is phase 3. Phase 1 and 2 will be done. They required more money than additionally identified because of supply chain, inflation, etc. Phase 3 could be postponed if needed, but you would lose the renovation of 43 independent living units, as well as the opportunity to move our departments, which provide a wraparound service for the residents. So if we were to not complete phase 3, which is now, there's no money left in the kitty for it because phase 1 and 2 cost more than initially outlaid. So there are options to council. If you choose not to fund more money, phase 3 won't be completed. My question, though, is how confident are we that $3 million is enough? I mean, inflation continues to rise. Supply chain issues continue to exist. When's enough enough? Or are you going to come back to us in 3 more months, because this won't start till January, and tell me that you need another $3 million?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have had that discussion internally. We spoke with our corporate facilities management team, and we are fairly confident in the $3 million ask, but nothing is guaranteed, as what Mr. Nicolay said as well. Things do keep changing, but we're hopeful if we move forward with this now, and construction has started, and we have a group of general contractors who are interested. And we're anticipating the pricing will come in very close to $3 million, but of course there's no guarantees.
Thank you.
Mr. Nicolay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to elaborate on a point made earlier, at some point you have to cut the suit to fit the cloth, and we realize that. And believe me, the management team across all fronts has been trying to do that in every way that they possibly can. There's an acute need for this service in the community. Our per door cost for a finished project is still radically lower than what any other community that I'm familiar with has achieved. But there will come a point where you have to cut the suit to fit the cloth. This is really a step toward that decision point. So what we did this time was we realized the cumulative effect of increased costs and supply chain pressures and inflation have driven the total cost of this project up. And so we went through and looked at other priorities that are currently being funded in the capital program and tried to determine priorities that would be less than the priority of completing this project as described. And that's where the $3 million list came from. It isn't a guarantee for sure, but the idea is to do it within the current funding envelope without putting increased pressure on taxes, for example, and get this project completed and get this much needed service into the community.
Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair O'Toole. I am not sure if this is a question for Ms. Whiteway or Mr. Glavin, but can somebody tell me, not doing a retaining wall seems a little risky to me, in regards to, at one point, administration thought this was a priority and now it's not. And we know that sloping just doesn't stop because it chooses to. So, Mr. Miller?
Thanks, through the chair. So we did have that discussion as well. This, if you notice, the number is a little bit, it's not a rounded off figure. So we have spent some of the money on repairs at the site, and hopeful those repairs will address the issue. So I think we're fine for right now. We did speak with Mr. Phillips about this as well, and Mr. Brown has been involved with the discussions. So we're comfortable recommending we could remove this, and if the fix that was put in place isn't adequate, then we'll identify that down the road.
Okay.
Right. Councillor Bressie?
Great, thank you. How are we looking at for timeline on these projects? Are we going to have to be extending this development permit, or are we still anticipating to get them done on time?
Through the chair, I can try to respond to that one as well. So we do have a Gantt chart that's been prepared now for phase 1. And in speaking with Corporate Facilities Management on Friday, we are anticipating to totally finish the project at 100% with landscaping included. We're anticipating the end of June. But prior to that, the actual construction of the site should be, we don't want to, I guess, overpromise and underdeliver, but hopefully by late April, we should be finished construction.
Great. And in terms of getting the trailers off site, is that, are you going to be able to do that sooner than the whole project being done, or is that waiting till late April or late June as well?
Through the chair, we are anticipating, again, I had this discussion on Friday, and hopeful by mid-February, we should have the tenants inside in the new residences. So, but things keep changing on us, unfortunately, but that is our target right now.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you very much, Chair O'Toole. I'm not seeing any hands shoot up or anything like that, so I'm going to get a motion on the table, and then we can discuss and debate that. But I would move the recommendation that committee recommend council approve $3 million for the phase 3, final phase of construction of the coordinated care campus to be funded by existing capital dollars as presented. Just speaking to this motion, I know very all too well, actually, from the stories that I've heard over the last week dealing with housing, how costs have escalated dramatically, even in Grand Spirit, just building that 92 unit build out in Spirit River. That had cost overages creeping up to $9 million. And that was the province trying to wait it out and hope that they'd get better deals and the supply chain issues would fix themselves out. I think this is a reality that we have to temporarily navigate through the waters of. I know if nobody wants to spend extra money, but I think if we look at the end goal, which is really housing people and getting them the supports that they need, and also housing our administration departments to provide those on-site wraparound supports and access to services, grants, and even ACE funding, they can help them walk through that process. So I think it's imperative that we don't delay on this, and so, which is why I'm moving this forward, because I don't want to see an increase. I don't think anyone around this table wants to see any further increases. I'm still under budget as far as what I've predicted what this is going to cost. So that was just me, and that was my top margin. We are getting close to that, but I like to commend our administration. This is an easy report to deliver, but in order to put all these eggs into this beautiful basket, yeah, they've had to go through a lot of twists and turns along the way. So I would move that we approve this. Thank you.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Bressie?
Yeah, thank you. For me, I really struggle. I don't think I can support defunding the Avondale area redevelopment plan. I think the other projects, our residents won't notice that those are moved around or changed in our budget. But for me, it was just last week, council hosted a budget engagement where he invited key stakeholders in the community to talk about the budget. And the Avondale site was specifically brought up by those stakeholders as a priority they saw to see developed as the leisure center's torn down, as the soccer center's aging, and we're losing indoor recreation infrastructure on that site. Not having money to do infrastructure, to do planning, things like that, I think is a real impact on our community that I'm not prepared to support. I think that should be coming, since our residents would notice that. I personally think a more appropriate source for that $1 million of funding would be our fiscal stabilization reserve. This is something that we're dealing with unique circumstances in terms of supply chain, inflation. That's what that reserve exists for. And so for me, I think that we should be looking to find this $3 million in ways that don't hurt our residents and our residents won't notice. And I think they'll notice that $1 million missing. So I can't support this.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Then I'll call for the vote.
Councillor Thiessen in favor.
That's carried 3-1. All right. We have no items of correspondence. We have no other business. We have no policy and bylaw reviews at this time. But we do have an outstanding items list. So, Mr. Manuel, would you like to go ahead and review the outstanding items list?
I certainly will. I can tell you that it looks like we didn't remove any items today, so the list as presented remains on track.
Okay. We need a motion to just leave it. So, Mr. Thiessen, would you be interested in that?
Yeah, for sure. I would make the motion to receive the outstanding items list as presented.
Okay. Call for the vote.
Councillor Thiessen in favor.
And that passes 4-0. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting. Thank you to the staff that worked hard to get this reports done, and I call this meeting over.